The ancient vault doors groaned open after 10,000 years of silence, releasing a whisper of stale air that carried the weight of forgotten civilizations. Deep beneath the ruins of Kepler 442b, the archaeological team from the Galactic Federation stood frozen in awe before what they had discovered. Dr. Vextai, the expedition leader whose chitinous shell gleamed under the artificial lights, stepped forward with trembling limbs. His species, the Zephyrians, had been among the first to join the Federation 3 millennia ago, and, in all his centuries of research, he had never encountered anything like this. The chambers stretched beyond their lights, carved from solid rock with precision that defied explanation. Strange symbols covered every surface, pulsing with a faint blue energy that seemed to respond to their presence. But it was the centerpiece that commanded their attention, a suit of armor standing motionless on a raised platform in the chamber's heart. The armor was unlike anything in the Federation's vast databases. It stood 7 feet tall, crafted from a material that seemed to absorb and reflect light simultaneously. The surface appeared almost liquid, flowing like mercury while maintaining perfect rigidity. No visible joints or seams marked its construction, as if the entire suit had been forged as one seamless piece. Commander Thrak, a massive Gornian whose rocky hide could deflect plasma bolts, approached the platform with military precision. His people had conquered 17 star systems before joining the Federation, and he feared nothing in the known galaxy. Yet something about this ancient relic made his warriors' instincts scream warnings. "The readings are off the charts," whispered Dr. Lisa, the team's crystalline technician. Her translucent body flickered with bioluminescent patterns as she analyzed the data streaming through her neural interfaces. "The energy signature doesn't match any known technology. It's like the armor is generating power from nothing." The Beltari scholar, Professor Quinn, floated near the ceiling on gossamer wings, his 4 eyes focused on the symbols surrounding the armor. His species had mastered linguistic xenoarchaeology, deciphering dead languages across the galaxy. But these markings challenged everything he knew about communication and meaning. "I've seen similar symbols before," Quinn announced, his melodious voice echoing through the chamber. "Fragments, scattered across dozens of dead worlds throughout the galaxy. But never this complete, never this active." As the team circled the armor, their instruments detected something that made them pause. The suit was not empty. Deep scans revealed the presence of organic matter within a skeleton, perfectly preserved after countless millennia. Dr. Vextai's mandibles clicked nervously as he processed this information. Whatever species created this technology, they're long extinct. The skeletal structure suggests a bipedal humanoid, roughly 2 meters in height. But the bone density, the cranial capacity, this being was built for war. The armor seemed to pulse in response to their conversation, the blue glow intensifying slightly. Commander Thrak instinctively reached for his weapon, a plasma rifle capable of melting through starship hulls. But, as his clawed hand touched the weapon's grip, something extraordinary happened. The armor turned its head toward him. The movement was subtle, almost imperceptible, but every member of the team saw it. Where a face should have been, there was only smooth metal that reflected their terrified expressions. Yet somehow, they all felt the weight of its gaze. "Impossible," breathed Dr. Lisa, her crystalline form flickering rapidly. "The suit shows no power source, no active neural networks. How can it be moving?" Professor Quinn descended from his aerial perch, his wings trembling with excitement and fear. "The legends," he whispered. "Ancient stories passed down through oral traditions across 100 species. They speak of warriors who fought in armor that could not be broken, could not be pierced, could not be defeated. The stories called them the guardians of the last war." The team exchanged glances, their different physiologies all expressing the same emotion, terror mixed with desperate curiosity. The Federation had encountered many ancient technologies, but nothing that seemed to possess its own consciousness. Dr. Vextai made the decision that would change galactic history. "We need to attempt contact. If this armor contains an artificial intelligence from an extinct civilization, the knowledge could revolutionize our understanding of the universe." He approached the platform slowly, his translator automatically adjusting to broadcast on multiple frequencies. "Ancient One, we are explorers from the Galactic Federation. We seek knowledge and understanding. Will you speak with us?" The armor's response was immediate and overwhelming. A wave of energy erupted from the suit, washing over the team without causing physical harm but flooding their minds with images and sensations. They saw flashes of a great war that had consumed the galaxy, battles fought on scales that dwarfed anything in recorded history. Entire star systems burned while armored figures stood against in darkness that threatened all life. When the visions ended, the team found themselves on their knees, gasping for air they didn't realize they'd been holding. The armor had returned to its original position, but the message was clear: it had judged them and found them wanting. Commander Thrak struggled to his feet, his massive frame shaking with effort. What was that? What did it show us? Professor Quinn's voice was barely a whisper as he translated what they had experienced. A warning. The armor was showing us why it exists, why it waits. There was a war, long before our civilizations rose to sentience. Something threatened all life in the galaxy, and warriors in suits like this one fought to protect it. Dr. Vextai checked his instruments, noting that the armor's energy output had returned to baseline levels. But why show us this? Why reveal itself now? The answer came not from the armor, but from Dr. Lisa's long-range sensors. Her crystalline body pulsed with alarm patterns as she accessed the Federation communication networks. Because it's happening again. Long-range monitoring stations at the Galactic Rim have detected massive energy signatures moving toward populated space. The signals match nothing in our databases, but they're heading straight for Federation territory. The chamber fell silent except for the hum of their equipment. The implications were staggering. If the visions were true, if the ancient war was beginning again, then their entire civilization was at risk. Commander Thrak stepped closer to the armor, his warrior's pride overcoming his fear. Ancient Guardian, our people face the same threat you once fought. Will you help us? Will you fight alongside the Federation? The armor's head turned toward him once more, and this time the movement was deliberate, unmistakable. But, instead of acceptance, the team felt a wave of rejection so powerful it staggered them. The meaning was clear: the armor would not serve them. Why? Dr. Vextai demanded, his scientific curiosity overwhelming his caution. Why do you refuse? We're facing the same enemy you once battled. Images flooded their minds again, but these were different. They saw the Federation's member species, the Zephyrians with their chitinous shells, the Gornians with their rocky hides, the crystalline beings with their translucent forms, the Beltari with their gossamer wings, all attempting to wear the armor. Each attempt ended in failure, the suit rejecting every candidate with increasing violence. The message was devastating in its simplicity. The armor had been crafted for a specific species, designed to bond with a particular type of consciousness and physiology. No matter how brave or worthy the Federation's champions might be, they were not compatible with the ancient technology. Professor Quinn's translation confirmed their worst fears. The armor was created for humans. Only humans can wear it, only humans can access its power. But humans have been extinct for over 50,000 years. The team stood in stunned silence as the full scope of their situation became clear. The galaxy's greatest weapon against an ancient threat existed, but the only species capable of using it had vanished eons ago. They had found salvation and damnation in the same moment. Dr. Vextai made the decision that would echo through history. We need to inform the Federation Council immediately. Every archaeological team, every deep space expedition, every colonial survey must search for human remains. If even a single human survived somewhere in the galaxy, if there's any chance of genetic reconstruction. His words trailed off as the armor began to move again, this time more dramatically. It raised one gauntlet hand and pointed toward a section of the chamber wall. The symbols there blazed with brilliant light, revealing a hidden passage that their scans had missed. It's showing us something, Dr. Lisa observed, her form brightening with excitement. There's more here, more information. The team followed the armor's gesture, discovering a vast archive hidden behind the chamber. Crystalline data cores lined the walls, each containing terabytes of information about human civilization, their technology, their biology, and, most importantly, their locations throughout the galaxy. But, as they began to access the archives, long-range sensors across the galaxy confirmed their worst nightmare. The ancient enemy had returned in force, and massive fleets of unknown ships were crossing into Federation space. The war that had ended 50,000 years ago was about to begin anew. The armor stood silent in its chamber, waiting for a species that no longer existed to claim their birthright and save the galaxy once more. Time was running out, and hope seemed as extinct as humanity itself. The armor denied all aliens. 2nd Chronicles. 6 months had passed since the discovery on Kepler 442b, and the galaxy burned with the fires of an ancient war reborn. The Federation's greatest fleets lay in ruins across 17 star systems, their advanced weaponry useless against an enemy that seemed to anticipate every strategy, every tactic, every desperate gambit. Admiral Crestar stood on the bridge of the Federation flagship Unity's Hope, watching through the viewports as another colony world died. The Devourers, as the ancient archives had named them, consumed everything in their path. They didn't conquer or subjugate, they simply erased civilizations from existence, leaving nothing but empty space where thriving worlds once orbited their stars. The enemy's ships defied every law of physics the Federation understood. They moved without visible propulsion, fired weapons that ignored shields and armor, and seemed to rebuild themselves even as Federation forces destroyed them. Most terrifying of all, they learned from every engagement, adapting their strategies in real time to counter any advantage the defenders managed to achieve. Status report: Admiral Crestar commanded, his forearms manipulating multiple control interfaces simultaneously. His species, the Vorthak, had evolved for multitasking warfare, making them natural fleet commanders. But even their legendary tactical abilities proved worthless against this ancient foe. Captain Zedhai, a serpentine naga whose coils wrapped around her command console, delivered the grim assessment. Outer rim defense lines have collapsed. We've lost contact with the hegemony worlds in the Vega sector. Long-range sensors indicate complete planetary sterilization across 43 systems. The numbers were staggering. In 6 months, the Devourers had eliminated more sentient life than had been lost in all of the Federation's previous conflicts combined. Entire species were vanishing from the galaxy as if they had never existed. Dr. Vextai materialized on the bridge via holographic projection from his research facility on Sanctuary Station. The Zephyrian scientist had aged visibly since discovering the armor, his chitinous shell now bearing stress fractures that spoke of sleepless weeks and crushing responsibility. "Admiral, I have an update on our search for human genetic material," he reported, his mandibles clicking with nervous energy. "We've analyzed samples from 300 archaeological sites across the galaxy. The results are troubling." Admiral Crestar's primary arms gestured for him to continue while his secondary limbs maintained fleet coordination. "Speak plainly, Doctor." "How troubling?" "We found evidence of human presence on dozens of worlds, but their extinction was complete. Whatever caused humanity's disappearance 50,000 years ago, it didn't leave survivors. We've recovered fragmentary DNA sequences, but nothing approaching the genetic completeness required for reconstruction." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of failing systems and distant weapons fire. Without humans to operate the ancient armor, the Federation faced extinction at the hands of an enemy their ancestors had somehow defeated. Commander Thrax's voice rumbled through the comm system from his position leading the defense of the Tau Ceti system. "Doctor, what about the archives in the chamber? Did they contain any information about human survivors or colonies?" Dr. Vextai's image flickered as power fluctuations affected the holographic transmission. "That's what makes this even more mysterious. The human archives suggest their civilization spanned thousands of worlds at the time of their disappearance. The scale of their infrastructure dwarfed anything the Federation has achieved. Yet every trace of them vanished simultaneously." Professor Quinn joined the transmission from his position translating ancient texts in the Federation's greatest library. His gossamer wings had lost their usual luminescence, dimmed by exhaustion and despair. "I've been analyzing the linguistic patterns in the archives. There's something the humans knew, something that made them prepare for their own extinction. The armor wasn't just a weapon, it was a legacy, left for a future that might need their protection." Admiral Crestar felt the weight of command pressing down on his massive frame. "Then, we adapt. If we can't use their weapons, we create our own. If we can't match their technology, we find another way to." His words were interrupted by proximity alarms as space around the fleet erupted in impossible geometries. The Devourers had found them again, their vessels emerging from dimensional folds that shouldn't exist. Unlike their previous encounters, these ships were different, larger, more complex, bearing weapon configurations that the Federation databases couldn't even classify. All ships, Battle Formation Omega. Admiral Crestar commanded, his tactical systems analyzing the approaching threat. Focus fire on their command vessels. The Federation fleet opened fire with everything they had. Plasma cannons that could crack moons, antimatter torpedoes capable of destroying small asteroids, energy weapons that manipulated fundamental forces. All of it struck the Devourer ships and simply vanished into their hulls without effect. The enemy response was swift and devastating. Beams of pure darkness lanced out from the alien vessels, and, wherever they touched, matter simply ceased to exist. Entire cruisers vanished in an instant, leaving not even debris behind. The Federation's most advanced shields offered no protection against weapons that operated on principles their science couldn't comprehend. Retreat! Admiral Crestar ordered, but it was already too late. The Devourers had positioned their fleet to cut off all escape routes. This wasn't a battle, it was an execution. As Unity's hope shuddered under weapons fire that ignored every defensive system, something unprecedented happened. The ship's long-range sensors detected an energy signature unlike anything they had encountered, not Devourer technology, but something else entirely. Dr. Lisa's crystalline form materialized on the bridge through emergency projection protocols. Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy fluctuations from the Kepler 442b excavation site. The armor, it's becoming active again. On the viewscreen, the Devourer fleet paused their attack as if sensing something that gave them pause. For the first time since the war began, the ancient enemy showed something resembling hesitation. Dr. Vextai's voice crackled through damaged communication systems. I'm receiving data from the archaeological site. The armor is moving on its own, accessing systems in the chamber that we couldn't even detect. It's as if something triggered an automatic response. The answer came from an unexpected source, a small research vessel that had been conducting deep space surveys in the galactic edge regions. Captain Marsh, a career explorer whose species specialized in extreme environment operations, transmitted on emergency frequencies. Federation Command, this is Research Vessel Pioneer's dream. We've detected a massive energy anomaly in the void zone. Something's emerging from dark space, multiple contacts, unknown configuration. Wait, these readings can't be right. Professor Quinn's voice carried new urgency. Captain, describe what you're seeing. Every detail could be crucial. It's impossible, Captain Marsh replied, his voice filled with wonder and disbelief. The energy signatures match human technology, but they're 50,000 years old. These ships should have been scrap metal millennia ago, yet they're moving under their own power. I'm detecting massive life signs aboard the lead vessel. The implications struck the bridge crew like a physical blow. Admiral Crestar's tactical mind raced through possibilities. Are you suggesting that humans survived somewhere beyond the galactic rim? That they've been hiding in dark space for 50,000 years? Not hiding, Professor Quinn whispered as his translations of the ancient text suddenly clicked into place. Waiting. The humans knew this day would come. They prepared for the Devourer's return by removing themselves from the galaxy entirely. They've been out there all this time, growing stronger, building better ships, perfecting their weapons. On the Kepler 442b excavation site, the ancient armor stepped down from its platform for the first time in millennia. Security cameras captured images that would become legendary, the suit walking through the chamber as if it had never been empty, heading toward the surface with purpose and determination. Dr. Vextai transmitted from his position at the dig site. The armor is leaving the chamber. It's heading for the surface, and its energy output is increasing exponentially. I'm detecting communication signals on frequencies we've never encountered. It's transmitting something into deep space. The Federation fleet, still locked in battle with the Devourers, watched as space itself began to change around them. Dimensional rifts opened across the battlefield, and through them came ships that defied every expectation. These vessels bore the hallmarks of human engineering, but evolved far beyond anything in the archaeological records. The human ships moved with impossible grace, their hulls flowing like liquid metal while maintaining perfect structural integrity. They carried weapons that seemed to bend reality itself, and, when they fired upon the Devourers, the ancient enemy's supposedly invincible defenses crumbled like paper. But it was what happened next that would echo through galactic history. A single human transport approached the excavation site on Kepler 442b, and, from it emerged a figure in environmental gear that couldn't hide their unmistakable human physiology. Dr. Vextai watched through his instruments as the human approached the waiting armor. Unlike every Federation species that had attempted to interface with the ancient technology, this contact was seamless. The armor flowed around the human like living metal, bonding with them on levels that transcended physical compatibility. When the transformation was complete, the figure that stood before them was both human and something more. The armor had awakened fully for the first time in 50 millennia, and, with it came power that made the Federation's greatest weapons seem primitive by comparison. The armored human rose into the air without visible propulsion, ascending toward the battle raging in space above. As they reached the edge of the atmosphere, their voice transmitted across all frequencies, speaking in a language that universal translators somehow understood perfectly. "We have returned to honor the ancient covenant. The galaxy will not fall while humanity endures. The Devourer's time of judgment has come." The war was about to change in ways that none of the participants could have imagined. The galaxy that had mourned humanity's extinction was about to discover that humanity had never truly disappeared. They had simply been preparing for this moment across 50,000 years of exile and evolution. The armor denied all aliens. 3rd Chronicle. The battle above Kepler 442b transformed from slaughter to spectacle as the armored human entered the fray. Admiral Crestar watched from the Bridge of Unity's hope as impossible events unfolded before his tactical sensors. The lone figure moved through space as if the vacuum posed no barrier, engaging Devourer vessels that had been systematically destroying the Federation fleet moments before. Where the ancient enemy's weapons had passed through Federation shields like they were paper, they struck the human's armor and simply ceased to exist. The figure moved with fluid grace that defied physics, dodging attacks that moved at light speed and countering with energy beams that carved through Devourer hulls as if they were made of brittle glass. "Sensor readings are off the charts," Captain Zedhai reported, her serpentine form coiled tightly around her station in amazement. "The human is generating power outputs equivalent to our main reactor, and the armor appears to be amplifying their natural abilities by factors we can't calculate." Dr. Vextai's voice transmitted from the surface with barely contained excitement. "The armor isn't just protective equipment, it's a symbiotic interface that connects the wearer to what appears to be a galaxy-spanning network. I'm detecting quantum entanglement signatures linking the suit to every piece of human technology in the system." The human fleet that had emerged from dark space operated with coordination that made Federation naval doctrine seem primitive. Ships moved in perfect harmony, their weapons fire creating patterns of destruction that the Devourers couldn't adapt to fast enough. For the first time since the war began, the ancient enemy was losing. But it was the human in the armor who commanded everyone's attention. They had engaged the largest Devourer vessel directly, a massive construct that dwarfed even Federation dreadnoughts. The alien ship fired weapons that had previously erased entire squadrons from existence, only to watch them harmlessly dissipate against the armor's defensive fields. The humans' response was swift and decisive. They extended their hand toward the enemy vessel, and space around it began to distort in ways that violated every law of physics the Federation understood. The massive ship started to compress, its exotic matter hull folding in on itself as if reality had decided it no longer belonged in normal space. "Impossible," breathed Dr. Lisa from her research station, her crystalline form blazing with analytical light. "They're manipulating fundamental forces directly, rewriting the local laws of physics through pure will and the armor's amplification systems." Professor Quinn's translation software struggled to process the communications flowing between the human ships. "The linguistic patterns are unprecedented. They're not just talking to each other, they're sharing consciousness across the entire fleet. Every human pilot has access to the collective knowledge and experience of their species." The tide of battle shifted completely as more human vessels emerged from dimensional rifts across the star system. These weren't just reinforcements, they were manifestations of a civilization that had spent 50,000 years preparing for this moment. Their technology had evolved beyond anything the galaxy had seen, incorporating principles that the Federation's greatest scientists couldn't begin to comprehend. Admiral Crestar made the decision that would define the Federation's future. "Open a channel to the human commander. If they're willing to work with us, we might actually survive this war. The response came not from the fleet, but from the armored figures still engaged in single combat with the Devourer flagship. Their voice carried across space with perfect clarity, translated by systems that shouldn't have been compatible with Federation technology. We remember the Federation species from the archives. You have proven yourselves worthy defenders of this galaxy. The covenant our ancestors made extends to all who stand against the darkness. As if responding to these words, the human ships moved to form a protective barrier around the remaining Federation vessels. Their presence seemed to restore hope to crews that had been facing certain death moments before. Commander Thrax's voice crackled through battle-damaged communications from his defensive position. Human warrior, what are the Devourers? Where did they come from, and why do they seek to destroy all life? The armored figure paused in their battle, the massive Devourer ship held motionless in a gravity well of the human's creation. When they spoke, their words carried the weight of 50 millennia of knowledge. They are entropy given form, the universe's attempt to return to primordial void. They have consumed countless galaxies across cosmic time, and they view life as an aberration that must be corrected. Our ancestors fought them to a standstill 50,000 years ago, but victory required sacrifice beyond measure. Dr. Vextai's scientific curiosity overcame his fear. What sacrifice? What did humanity do to stop them before? We left, the human replied simply. The Devourers target populated space, drawn to the energy signatures of living civilizations. By removing ourselves from the galaxy entirely, we broke their focus and forced them into dormancy. But we knew they would return when new life reached sufficient complexity. Professor Quinn's voice carried new understanding. So you've been watching us all this time, waiting for us to develop enough to attract their attention again. Not just watching, the human corrected. Preparing. We used our exile to evolve beyond our original limitations. The armor you discovered was a prototype, a first attempt at bridging the gap between organic consciousness and cosmic scale technology. What we have become makes that ancient artifact seem crude by comparison. To demonstrate their point, the human released their hold on the Devourer flagship and, instead, reached out toward empty space. Reality bent to their will, and a weapon began to form from pure energy and manipulated matter. The construct grew to the size of a small moon, its surface crackling with power that made the Federation's antimatter weapons seem like toys. This is what 50,000 years of focused evolution can achieve, the human explained. We became something greater than biological life, but we never forgot our responsibility to protect the galaxy that gave us birth. The weapon fired, and the Devourer flagship simply vanished. Not destroyed, not damaged, erased from existence so completely that spacetime sealed itself around the void they left behind. Across the battlefield, the remaining Devourer ships began to retreat. For the first time in recorded history, the ancient enemy chose withdrawal over destruction. Their ships folded space around themselves and disappeared into dimensions that the Federation's sensors couldn't track. But the human fleet made no move to pursue them. Instead, they gathered around the Federation survivors, their vessels forming protective formations that spoke of careful planning and long experience. The armored figure descended toward Unity's hope, their approach causing no alarm despite their demonstrated power. They moved with careful deliberation, clearly aware of how their presence might be perceived by species who had never encountered their kind. As they drew near the Federation flagship, Admiral Crestar made a decision that would echo through galactic history. Human warrior, I formally request permission to come aboard and speak with you face to face. The Federation needs to understand our new reality. Permission granted, Admiral. But be aware that what you see may challenge everything you believe about the nature of existence. The meeting that followed in Unity's Hope's main conference room would be remembered as the moment the galaxy changed forever. The human removed their helmet, revealing features that were recognizably baseline human but enhanced in ways that spoke of deliberate evolution. Their eyes held depths that seemed to contain the wisdom of eons, and, when they spoke, reality itself seemed to listen. I am Marcus Chen, last of the original human generation and first of what we have become. My people chose me to make contact because I remember the galaxy as it was before our exile. I remember the worlds we fought to protect and the civilizations we saved from the Devourer's hunger. Dr. Vextai, present via holographic projection, could barely contain his excitement. Your species achieved controlled evolution while maintaining individual consciousness. The implications for biological research are staggering. Marcus smiled, the expression carrying warmth that transcended species barriers. We learned that consciousness is not limited by the boundaries of flesh. The armor you discovered was our first attempt to bridge the gap between mind and machine, but we eventually found better solutions. Professor Quinn leaned forward, his gossamer wings quivering with curiosity. What solutions? How did you achieve such seamless integration with your technology? By recognizing that the distinction between organic and artificial intelligence is ultimately meaningless, Marcus replied. We became something new, beings who exist simultaneously as individuals and as part of a collective consciousness that spans the entire galaxy. The armor was unnecessary once we learned to become the technology ourselves. Admiral Crestar absorbed this information while his tactical mind processed the strategic implications. Will you help us rebuild? Will humanity rejoin the galactic community? Marcus considered the question carefully before answering. We will help you prepare for the Devourer's return, for they will come again when they have gathered sufficient strength. But we cannot simply rejoin the galaxy as we once were. What we have become would fundamentally alter the nature of your civilizations. The conference continued for hours as the human explained the true scope of the threat facing the galaxy. The Devourers were not just another enemy, they were a force of cosmic destruction that had consumed countless galaxies across universal time. Earth's children had become humanity's greatest weapons in an eternal war between existence and entropy. As the meeting concluded, Marcus made an offer that would reshape galactic civilization. We will establish academies throughout Federation space, institutions where your best and brightest can learn to push beyond their current limitations. We cannot make you into what we have become, but we can help you become more than what you are. The human fleet began to disperse across the galaxy, their ships taking up positions at key strategic points where they could monitor for Devourer incursions. The ancient armor on Kepler 442b was carefully transported to Earth's location in dark space, where it would serve as a memorial to humanity's sacrifice and a symbol of their return. Dr. Vextai established the first xenological research center dedicated to studying human evolution, while Professor Quinn began the monumental task of translating the complete human archives for Federation use. Commander Thrak founded military academies where Federation officers learned tactics that incorporated human strategic principles. The galaxy had been saved, but, more importantly, it had been given hope for the future. Humanity had returned not as conquerors or overlords, but as teachers and guardians. The armor that had once denied all alien contact now served as a bridge between species, proof that evolution and cooperation could overcome any threat. The war with the Devourers was far from over, but the galaxy no longer faced the darkness alone. Humanity's children had come home, bringing with them the wisdom of exile and the strength that comes from choosing to protect rather than dominate. The covenant forged in ancient chambers would endure, ensuring that when the darkness returned, it would find the galaxy ready and united in defiance. The armor had waited 50,000 years for its true purpose to be revealed, not as a weapon of war, but as a symbol of hope that transcended the boundaries between species and the limitations of mortality itself.